Well, good morning, one and all. We welcome you back to the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine ahead of qualifying one, with Group A heading out first for our first ventures into Spa-Francorchamps this weekend for an official qualifying session. Of course, we've concluded free practice through the course so far of this week. Of course, it all kicked off yesterday, and thus far, the collective test has certainly shown that Freddie Slater has not missed a step despite the incident in race one back at Misano that saw him exit from the race, but came back certainly with a little bit more venom heading into race two, where we did venture, of course, into Misano. But we're now here this time around at Belgium, home, of course, to the Formula One Belgian Grand Prix. And as I said, collective test one going the way of Freddie Slater for Prema, registering the fastest time of the weekend in collective testing with the 2:11.031. But collective test two went the way of Nikita Bedrin, representing Santalok Racing, of a 2:11.125. But now the stakes are set, and of course coming into this one with the groups lined up, with Group A heading out first, Nandavud, Biren Bhakti, Jin Nakamura, Rashid Al-Dahiri, Aditya Kulkarni, Sakir Al-Moshari, as well as Kanato Lee, as well as Michael Belov, Rui Heng Ye, Pedro Clero, Dorian Pin marking her return to the series after missing out at Misano, obviously taking part in the F1 Academy weekend at Saudi Arabia for the Jeddah weekend, and she was very successful over there and is certainly coming here with a grand degree of confidence, with Mercedes supporting her on her way into Spa, with Jack Beaton also lining up alongside her at Prema for this first group venture into qualifying one, with Dion Gouda, who has certainly been very strong representing the rookie campaign as well, the rookie class, and had a very, very strong outing last time out. Taito Kato, also we welcome him back into Group A as well this time, and Evan Gilter, who took back-to-back first round victories from last season, obviously coming into this round. Matteo De Paulo may have taken the first race win of the season and opening up Trident's account for the first time in their history in the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine. But it was Evan Gilter, who was a race winner on debut back at Hockenheimring in 2024. Well, he's come back again in a first round occasion at Misano and took victory in race two after qualifying on pole position for ART. And ART looking exceedingly strong once again this weekend, of course, lining up with the likes of Taito Kato and Kanato Lei this weekend, the two Japanese stars looking to once again impress for them. Of course, Taito Kato finishing fifth in that opening race when we got things underway. But as you can see, a very busy pit lane thus far. Temperatures have been a little cooler in comparison to Misano, and of course in comparison as well to the collective test that we did have yesterday, but that is just simply because we have not yet gone into the mid part of the day. And I'm sure when we get into racing action later on this afternoon, we're going to be in for a real treat, as you just see Akshay Bora just sprinting across towards the pit wall. As the cars now get set, you can just see them all in a row, getting ready for the first session of qualifying. We have 14 minutes and 20 or so on the clock as we look to get things underway. And already some of the cars taking to the track, that's for sure. There's the number 21 belonging to Rui Heng Ye, also known as Enzo Ye, whose teammate Enzo Persho went on to celebrate the Rising Car Award, the Pirelli Rising Car Award. Of course, we interviewed him yesterday, and very confident ahead of this weekend. Of course, making overtakes at a very tight Misano circuit that doesn't really offer too much in the ways of overtaking, but Spa certainly does. So he'll be making full use of it, I'm sure. But many of the drivers who perhaps don't see necessarily qualifying as desperate here at this track as it was at Misano. Obviously, it's still important to qualify on pole position, of course it is. But at the same time, with Spa offering so much in terms of being one of the longest tracks, one of the longest circuits you'll see on this calendar, it also carries such a high variance in corners as well as elevation as well. So there's every opportunity for every car across this grid to certainly perform, or certainly to be able to perform and rise through the ranks here in this phenomenal circuit that we have here in the Ardennes Forest. But already now more and more cars making their way out. Nandavud Biren Bhakti also making his way out onto the circuit. Sakir Al-Malshari as well heading out now. Also important news with regards to CL Motorsport, who, if you remember back at Misano, starting things off with Valerio Rinicella inside the car, who's obviously very well accustomed to Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine. Well, this time around we've got two other, I'm not going to say new drivers because we have seen them in the past. Maceo Capietto, we welcome him back to the series. He's been very busy as well, not just in single-seaters, but has been taking part in the European Le Mans series, and also made his 24 hours, certainly the Circuit de la Sarthe. He made his first appearance at the Le Mans 24-hour back in 2024. Now, whilst it did lead to a DNF, obviously we know how worldly it is well renowned. Of course, the 24 hours of Le Mans. He, of course, marking his first start in that race, but now comes back here in single-seater competition, this time with a brand new CL Motorsport team, of course, governed by David Lee and Jack Lee as well. Of course, based in Italy, had their home race in their debut event here in the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine back at Misano. So a home race, a home weekend, and it was great to see them out on track as well in their colouring of orange, blue and white. And also back again are, of course, the other new team to join the grid, Axel GP. But just referring to the second new driver that's come in to join the team at CL Motorsport, Michael Belov. We welcome him back as well, who has represented various teams across this grid, but now returning once again. And has also scored podiums historically in his own right. Plenty more to come, I'm sure, from Michael Belov, and CL Motorsport will surely benefit from his involvement, the 23-year-old, who comes in after being a champion in Formula Academy Finland back in 2018 with 2 wins and 7 podiums, 2 pole positions. But in terms of Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine competition, he was with Trident back in 2024 for a few of the races, scoring a podium there too, and prior to that representing G4 Racing in 2023, and has done very well as well, even further back than that, back in 2021, where we witnessed him joining the championship with JD Motorsport and G4 Racing, taking 2 wins, 2 pole positions and 3 podiums altogether. So does pack a punch. Did, of course, join MP Motorsport the following season, taking 2 podiums there. So allow him a full season campaign, and you just never truly know what he is capable of. But definitely one of the more experienced drivers on this grid. As we watch now, as we watch Aditya Kulkarni making his way through the chicane. Of course, the young Brit representing Axel GP. Matthew Norman, of course, the team boss of this new team that broke ground in Formula 4. Now coming in for their first season of Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine competition now. As the timer breaks into the final 10 minutes for Group A. Remember, of course, there will be alternations between Group A and Group B as we make our way through qualifying sessions. We have 2 qualifying sessions and 2 races for those of you who are new and joining us for the very first time. Of course, Group A heading out first to decide the grid for race 1. Group B will go out just after this group. So Group B obviously benefiting from the Pirelli rubber being laid down already, but then when we move into race 2 tomorrow, we will of course have another two groups, or should we say another qualifying session where, oh, just see there, the rear gets spat out there by Aditya Kulkarni. It's getting a little bit excitable coming in towards turn 1, but yeah, it'll be roles reversed. Group B heading out first, with Group A then having the benefits of the improved track conditions. Obviously that dependent on conditions based on how the weather is performing, whether rain will of course be coming down, which does happen. Of course at Spa we have seen it on numerous occasions over the many years that this circuit has been in existence, since the hallmarks of over 103 years ago in August of 1921, where this track was opened for the very first time, and has been embracing Formula 1 competition since, of course, the walls went up in 1950. So it's been around for a great deal of time, as we just see a little bit of a queue now forming up, heading down in towards the bus stop chicane, and part of this group that is fielding just in behind the 95 belonging to Evan Gilter is the Prema. 28 belonging to Dorian Pin, of course, winner back at Saudi Arabia for the Jeddah weekend in the F1 Academy, welcoming her back now. Of course, supported by Iron Dames and, of course, Mercedes, who are in her corner this weekend. So, on her return, looking for some big results, and has set some clear goals in her mind. Got a chance to catch up with her. She's very excited to come to Spa for her second season in succession of competition here in Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine, as now Evan Gilter flies up through the Kemmel Straight. and will then make his way up through towards Laycombe. Already purple sector's been lit up by Nandavad Birenbhakti. He currently sits first fastest with a 2:21.965. We also have purple middle sectors from Aditya Kulkarni, but remember the track will improve as time goes on. We've got Rashid Al-Dahiri sealing the first purple sector as well. He was absolutely astonishing, folks, was he not? Back at our last round at Misano. Was unfortunately involved in an incident, though, later on, collected by Dion Gowda. But now looking to come back, fighting fit ahead of this weekend. And definitely if he can usher in purple sectors where it counts. Of course, we're still very early, reasonably early into the session. Still a few laps to be undertaken for all of these drivers in this opening group. Nandavad Birenbhakti remaining on top with a personal improvement in all three sectors thus far. Not to mention going purple in the final two as well. So bringing that timer down to a 2:11.701. So good time to kick things off for Nandavad Birenbhakti. Of course, the 2:11.031 of Freddie Slater was the fastest one set in collective test one. And out of all collective tests was indeed the fastest time that we have seen thus far as we now watch them come around Blanchimont now. We've got plenty of activity. Jin Nakamura also finding a purple first sector, was of course involved in the incident with Freddie Slater in race one, just went a little bit late into turn two, ended up spinning Slater. And it led to Jin Nakamura also exiting from the race as well with clear suspension damage as Rashid Al-Dahiri pops into first fastest. Evan Chilter up into third. Nandavad Birenbhakti now remains in second. Dorian Pin into third fastest. Kanato Lay, though, has taken that privilege away from her. And Birenbhakti, incidentally going purple again, is into the gravel. Goes the ART. Belonging to the 89 of Taito Kato. Of course, Honda supported this young man. Let's watch that again, just dipping the rear toes into the gravel. Luckily enough, not a full car's commitment coming out of turn one at La Source to venture. Oh, we do have, though, a car that is fully committed to the barrier. That is an Axel GP car, the 16 of Sakir Al-Malshari. And clear suspension damage on the right-hand side of the car. So unfortunately, that's an end to his session, and the session is stopped. In response, the marshals waving the red flags. So a red flag now, panned across the circuit. We'll take a look at the replay again. And just getting pivoted around, dipped his toes into the gravel, reversed, and just slingshotted the front end straight into the barrier. So that is that car confirmed out of this session, and therefore now the rest of the grid will have to form up inside the pit lane before we get going again. Still quite a level of time left on this Group A session here in qualifying one. It's actually Jin Nakamura at the moment who is the fastest out on track, 2:11, should I say, 0.97. Spectators watching on, looking to bask in all the single-seater action. Of course, many of these drivers looking to put together strong adverts ahead of potential drives in Formula 3 in the future. And of course, Formula 2, Formula 1. Of course, we talk about Formula 1. We will, of course, be heading to Imola later on this year. Very excited fan there in the grandstands, that's for sure. But no rain here. It's actually fairly picturesque. A few clouds across the sky. Sakir Al-Malshari now jumps out of the car, representing the rookie class contingent as well. Only two of them here in this Group A session as we now watch the replay again. Just spat the gravel out, didn't he, coming out before venturing in towards the next right. Didn't even reach that part of the course, but just see the marshals that were there on hand, ready to pick the car up. So looks like there is a fairly quick escape route to allow the car back in. So hopefully we shouldn't be in the pits for too long under red flag conditions, but we will, of course, keep you posted, folks, as to what race control plan to do for the foreseeable. But there is still plenty of time left for Group A to lay down some lap times. But Jin Nakamura is the fastest driver out on track thus far, 2:11.097. We have surpassed Nikita Bedrin's fastest time from collective test 2. Freddie Slater still currently holding on to that fastest time of a 2:11.031 as of now. As now the medical checks are underway, the medical car stacked up alongside, just making sure that Sakir Al-Malshari is all okay, and he is walking, of course, to the medical car as it stands. She's getting some checks before being taken back to the garages. As you can see there, a very busy paddock and a very busy pit lane here at Spa. But many questions still to be asked. Of course, we've had many great drivers come through here. We speak about former drivers moving up through to the realms. Of course, like I said, we are heading to Imola. Of course, it is the home this weekend of Formula One. We have, of course, got the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix ahead of its final contracted round with Formula One this weekend. But when we look back, of course, the likes of Andrea Kimi Antonelli, a winner here back in 2023, now representing the Mercedes Formula One team in a very special home weekend for him. And he'll be looking, and I'm sure many of his fans are going to be cheering him on, including his classmates who have been invited to the Grand Prix weekend over there too. And I'm sure many of the drivers here looking at the likes of Antonelli as a raw source of inspiration. Of course, we've seen the likes of Rafael Kamara as to what he's been doing in Formula 3 as of late, dominating the series thus far as well for Trident. After he, of course, was in his own title fight last year here in this very championship in 2024, went on to win here back-to-back in both race 1 and race 2, taking victories to the young Brazilian for Prema. Prema themselves, in their last 6 outings, have taken 5 of the 6 victories here at Spa, leading all the way back to Dino Beganovic, who took Prema's first victory in the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine in 2022. And despite Paul Aron qualifying fastest ahead of that weekend in race 1, it would fall the way of Beganovic. Gabriel Bortoleto, though, would go on to take the race 2 victory for our race GP, having, after Dino Beganovic, taken pole ahead of that race. And of course, Bortoleto also making it to the realms of Formula 1 for his debut season this year after winning F3 and F2 back-to-back. And it's certainly shown that he has got plenty of star quality, lining up alongside Nico Hulkenberg at Kick-Sauber for this season. But like I say, more to be written in the annals of history. Michael Belov, we speak about his return. He, of course, the first winner of this race back in 2021 with G4 Racing. Of course, the team colours are slightly different this time around, embracing the CL Motorsport crew, but I'm sure harbours many great memories around this track after Gregoire Saucy went and took pole ahead of that race when it did fall the way of Belov, who managed to pull together the maximum point score, with Saucy then going on to taking race 2 victory after Belov got pole ahead of race 2 that day. Can confirm that car 16, his best lap time, will be deleted for causing the red flag, so Sakir Al-Malshari will not be certainly featuring higher up in the echelons of the grid ahead of our first race coming up later on this afternoon. He will be starting towards the rear, towards the back, and there is going to be some work undertaken for Axel GP to ensure that the car is race ready ahead of this weekend. Never ideal for a team, but to go through that, but obviously that's what's necessary from time to time. But Jin Nakamura on his return, back on top for now. We talk about how his journey has panned out after commencing his racing career in Super GT back in 2024 last year. Of course, taking 6th place in that championship with 1 podium, but made his Formula Regional debut at the 2024 Macau Grand Prix. And now driving for RSGP in Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine. He is a Toyota Gazoo Racing Driver Challenge Program driver, so he's being supported by Toyota in many ways. And he did have, of course, Kamui Kobayashi in his corner back at Misano. Got a chance to talk to Kamui, and he was there just to obviously provide helpful advice to Jin Nakamura that weekend. Of course, a very experienced racer in his own right, representing Toyota in the realms of endurance racing, whether it be in the World Endurance Championship, and has reached the highest precipice of the sport in his own right, and with plenty of wisdom to depart to young Jin, that's for sure. I'm sure Rashid Al Dahiri, who currently sits 2nd fastest here in this qualifying session, will also be looking to write his own name into the record books, also part of the Mercedes Academy program, along with the likes of Dorian Pin. Prema with a very strong lineup here, with, of course, Freddie Slater, who we will be seeing in Group B later on, and Rashid Al-Dahiri, who hails from Abu Dhabi, the young 17-year-old who went on to win the WSK Super Masters Series karting championship in 2019 and 2021. And then made his single-seater debut in Italian F4 with Prema, taking 2 fourth-place finishes in his first season, finishing 10th in the series, and then 2024 in the United Arab Emirates F4 Championship, coming 4th there with 2 wins and 5 podiums, and now here with Prema Racing, looking for some big results of his own. And didn't he just get it in the first round as well, managing to, well, he was certainly fighting tooth and nail, managed to achieve a P3 in his first race of this season's championship. And had some strong qualifying sessions as well after starting 3rd on the grid, holding his grid position, and had to defend really hard. You know, take a look at the moments again as to the reason why we are currently under red flag conditions. You can just see that front nose cone buckled on the Axel GP car, but the more extensive damage is featured on the right-hand side, on the front right, where the suspension has perished there on the Axel GP machine. But rest assured, I'm sure they'll get straight to work on that ahead of racing this afternoon. But as we now watch the marshals, who have done a great job in clearing the debris that is certainly out there. We will, of course, wait for race control to give us some insights as to when we get back underway. Just doing some final checks onto the barrier as well after the contact was made by the Tata chassis against the barrier itself. But they're just ensuring that every degree of safety is carried out. And there's the car being taken back on the flatbed lorry. And, of course, working hard all weekend are our Marshall crew. But we can also talk about the season to come as well. Of course, we're only on round 2 of the championship. We're heading to Zandvoort for round 3 for the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine on the 6th to 8th of June. We've got Budapest coming up for round 4, and then Le Castellet for round 5 at Paul Ricard. And then, of course, Imola lines up next for the second half, the first of our second half of the championship races on the 1st to the 3rd of August, with Spielberg then lined up for round 7, as well onto the 5th and 7th of September, with Barcelona for round 8 in September as well on the 19th to the 21st. Hockenheimring for the penultimate round for round 9 on the 3rd to the 5th of October, with Monza then lining up for the season finale, where we hope to crown a champion on the 24th to the 26th of October. And at this point, that could be absolutely anybody, couldn't it, folks? Especially after what we saw from Matteo De Pallo in our first round of the season. I mean, what an astonishing result he managed to bring to the table. His qualifying was truly exquisite, I have to say. 2nd place on the grid, lined up on the front row with Freddie Slater alongside him, who eventually took pole. Was fast all weekend, Freddie Slater, but it definitely felt that race 1 set the tone for his very weekend, but he did ultimately finish 2nd in our second race after achieving a 2nd place spot on the grid. Remember, he was the first group out ahead of qualifying 2 that next day, so did not benefit off the back of the improved track like he did the day before, but still a front row start, and managed to bring home the bacon in 2nd. But it was a truly extraordinary Matteo De Pallo weekend, and 2 podiums to certainly send off Misano, his home race. It's truly an extraordinary feat, and I'm sure looking ahead, he's got the championship very much in mind. Whilst, of course, it's still very early in the season, you've got to have dreams. That's exactly what Matteo De Pallo has. And incidentally, it'd be rude of me not to report on this as well, because, of course, we've got to talk about these drivers as a whole and what they've been up to in the downtime between Misano and coming here to Spa as well. Both Enzo Dellini, of course, our race GP driver, and Matteo De Pallo have got together, and they've set up their own little feeder series sim racing Grand Prix organisation. They've been racing on iRacing in recent times, and did a couple of races and a couple of live streams, and they've got big plans to do something in the winter as well. So again, something a little extra if you want to, a little Easter egg for you as well, folks, if you want to check out what they've been up to in the downtime. But very exciting, and I can tell you that they take it just as seriously as they do in terms of real life racing, so credit to them. They're never far away from racing cars are the competitors, and it's made up, of course, we witnessed Jack Doohan as well taking part, and many, many others. Andrea Kimi Antonelli even popping by and getting involved as well. But Evan Gilter was also rocking in some incredible results. So you never know, maybe some decent preparation. They did race Spa in the opening round of that little championship they put together, and they'll be hoping that some of it leads to benefits through the course of the weekend. And I did ask Evan Gilter, is there anything you can take away from that sim racing experience that you can apply here at Spa this weekend? He said a little bit, but not everything. He said that obviously there are variances and differences in, of course, what they do behind the wheel of a real-life car. And, of course, that is absolutely correct, with the elements of the G-forces that you can apply when driving these very cars. Also, you can't necessarily fully replicate the feel, but it kind of gives you a view when you are making your way around in a simulator. But credit to those drivers keeping themselves entertained in between Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine weekends. You can see it's still a very busy pit lane at the moment. Not a lot of movement just yet in terms of cars getting back out on track. We're still under red flag conditions, folks. As soon as we do hear anything, we will, of course, keep you posted. But at the moment, it is still Jin Nakamura with the fastest time of the session thus far. The clock frozen at 5 minutes and 23. With Rashid Al-Dahiri currently second fastest ahead of Nandavud Birenbakdi, Kanato Lay in fourth fastest. Dion Gowda, highest placed rookie at the moment after nestling in at 2:12.319. Dorian Pin down in sixth. Evan Gilter in seventh with teammate Taito Kato just behind. Pedro Clero, who was very confident this weekend. Got a chance to talk to him as well. Now, effectively, the locker room leader at Van Amersfoort after the departure of Brando Bador, who's now moved into the Formula One feeder series catalogue of F3 as well. Well, Pedro Clero, I'm sure, has similar ambitions on his mind as the 18-year-old Brazil driver from Brasilia, coming into this series after marking his Formula Regional European Championship debut with Van Amersfoort last season, taking 2 podiums, finishing 8th in the championship. Now back with the Van Amersfoort again after a very busy Misano round that saw him finish 4th and 5th in succession. Gained 2 places in the opening race after starting 6th on the grid. Whilst it wasn't enough necessarily to take the Rising Car Award, the Pirelli Rising Car Award, it is still a mark of improvement in that first race. And then after starting 5th on the grid in race 2, finishing 5th again, and he was really pressurising in race 1 against Rashid Al-Dahiri over that P3 spot, really chasing that podium. And I'm sure podiums will not be far away for Pedro Clero this season. Expect him, or certainly keep your watchful eye on him through the course of this campaign. Van Amersfoort have got some very fast drivers in their pocket. Obviously, Dion Gowda, despite being a rookie, showing plenty enough that he has got pace behind him. The young Brit who finished 17th in the first race of the season. Unfortunately, had that retirement after making a crucial error in the middle through to Sector 3. Collecting a couple of cards. They've also got Hayu Yamakoshi lining up for Van Amersfoort this season, who also scored double points through the weekend with an 8th place finish in race 1 and a 9th place finish in race 2. The young 18-year-old from Tokyo, Japan, who made his single-seater debut in 2023, racing in the F4 United Arab Emirates with Pinnacle VAR, and then went on to take part in French F4 and Spanish F4, and last season in Italian F4 with Van Amersfoort Racing, taking 3rd place in the championship with 2 wins, 7 podiums, and also taking part in Euro 4, finishing 4th in that series. Now back again this time with Van Amersfoort Racing in Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine in car number 6, representing the nation of Japan. But as you can see, the crane very busy out there, just making sure that they've got some added security to the barrier. It looks like they're adding some, or pushing some tyres in behind as well, just supporting that barrier in behind. Obviously, the marshals very, very wary of safety and security with how the barriers are performing. So we credit them all the time for their efforts here at Spa. But 5 minutes and 23. we can talk about a little bit about Dorian Pin as well. And we got a chance, like I said, to speak to her yesterday. Coming into this round from Ivry-sur-Seine in France, the 21-year-old who was a French karting champion back in 2019 as well. And has certainly become somewhat of a superstar and an inspiration to female drivers across the globe. Having made her mark in F1 Academy as well last year, she made it again here this year, and obviously coming off the back of that victory at Jeddah. She returns once again after representing and joining the Mercedes Junior team in 2023 and taking part in the World Endurance Championship with Prema that same year. Was a class winner in the Spa 24-hour as well. So packs a punch not just in single-seaters, but embracing the sports car world as well. And, of course, since taking part in that, has obviously made home at the F1 Academy and, of course, the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine. Also taking part in the Clio Cup back in 2020. And Le Mans Cup back in 2021, taking several podiums back then before winning in the Ferrari Challenge European Trofeo Pirelli Championship in 2022. So it comes in with a right pedigree and a superb CV coming into this season. So, like I said, Prema very well supported, and with the likes of Jack Beaton, who, you know, will certainly be better off from the experience he had back at Misano. And he was very keen for me to mention it as well with regards to his father, Justin, being a karting national champion in his home nation of Australia as well. We give a big shout out to Justin Beaton. Of course, I'm sure tuning into this broadcast at the moment, and of course representing the Gold Coast of Australia as well, looking for a golden weekend, I'm sure. And with Freddie Slater alongside and Rashid Al-Dahiri and Dorian Pin, I'm sure they'll have a grand weekend as long as everything goes to plan, as they await for their own qualifying laps to be ushered in come the end of play today. Also, we've got to talk about G4 Racing. We mentioned, of course, them being, as a team, race winners in the past with the likes of Michael Belov. Of course, they had Eduard Borgner as a rookie winner in our first round at Misano as well, also managing to scoop the same prize as Dion Gauda did. They were, of course, the highest performing rookies coming off the back of the Misano round. But, they've also got the likes of Arthur Aguirre. They did have Kaz Pastuka racing last time out. Of course, he is not here this weekend. But we did see a news report, of course, from him questioning, obviously, he did raise the point that maybe he jumped into F3 a little bit too soon, did Kaz Pastuka, and said that he wished he'd done another season for the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine. And you can perfectly understand why. Obviously, had a breakout year a couple of years ago, made 20 appearances in FIA F3 last year, but the year before did an absolutely astonishing job, Kaz Pastuka, of going on to win the Italian F4 Championship with 9 wins, 12 podiums and 9 poles. But we do wish him well in his future to come. I'm sure he'll be successful again once more. But our Race GP as well will also be looking for success in their own right. ART also, we mentioned Evan Gilter being a race winner back at Misano, where we speak about Gregoire Saucy delivering them championship gold back in 2021. And of course, a winner here back in race 2 in 2021 as well. And no doubt with the lineup that they've got with Evan Gilter, who came off the back of championship glory in his own right, winning the French F4 Series Championship with 6 wins and 13 podiums back in 2023. Joining ART ahead of the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine. And ART have done very, very well with French drivers in the past. We look at Alessandro Giusti, who has since risen through the ranks of F3 into F2 as well. He's just a phenomenal competitor, and it's not the only ones we have seen come out of French F4 and be successful as well. We also have the likes of Enzo Peugeot, who we were celebrating the Pirelli Rising Car Award. He, of course, finishing as a runner-up in French F4 in his own right. Of course, he's taken a different path. He's moved through to RPM for Keith Donegan's lineup, the Italian team that also have Giovanni Maschio and Rui Kenya or Enzo Ye, as we know. But 19-year-old Enzo Peugeot, having taken the Rising Car Award from born in France, French-Japanese talent who kick-started his racing career pretty much in 2019 with the B&L Karting Series Championship, becoming a winner in that one, and 2020 with a French Karting Championship, winning that, and then making his single-seater debut in 2021 in French F4 back at Magny-Cours. And then in 2022 took on French F4 with 2 wins and 3 podiums, eventually coming second in the championship the following year with 7 wins and 4 pole positions, 13 podiums, taking 2 wins in the Pau Grand Prix as well, which is a magnificent feat for any driver to achieve, to win at Pau. But I'm sure there'll be many more in the future of young Enzo Peugeot. But now moving into the realms of the Formula Regional category of racing, took part in the Middle Eastern Championship last year, as well as the European Championship with Santalot Racing. Of course, has now taken the jump across to RPM. And this season, after scooping P13 and P11 in succession at Misano, you get the feeling the points aren't too far away. And with his overtaking efforts, he did, of course, really throw the car in our last round at Misano, was doing absolutely everything to rise up the classification ladder. And now being at a track such as Spa, it does offer so much opportunity for overtaking, does this circuit. And it's great to be back here as well. Of course, we've been here ever since 2021 in this particular series, but a track that opened up over 103 years ago on in the August of 1921. And we're harbouring the Grand Prix layout that has been in existence since 2007 onwards. 19 corners and 7.004 kilometres, 4.352 miles. Of course, the home turf of the 24-hour of Spa and the Belgian Grand Prix in Formula One. And you speak to any driver across this grid and they think of it as a privilege to be at this very circuit. As we now wait for reports from race control, folks. Like I said, we will keep you up to date. You can, of course, stay up to date as well with the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine on Instagram. There's plenty of content that gets listed on there if you want to find out the latest news as well around the series and also stay up to date as well. There is a website you can jump on and stay up to date with all the results as they come in. We do, of course, have the results from the collective tests, and you can stay up to date as well in terms of the championship as well. And latest news that is, of course, posted. There is the hard work being undertaken by the marshals. They've got the crane carrying the tyre walls as well in behind. Like you can see them just strapping it towards the barrier. Now they have, as you can see, they've made some clear changes. The tyre wall now in front of the steel barrier you can see on the left. And now depositing more tyres there for the marshals to place in front in an effort to just add a little bit of extra support so that we can get back underway. But very busy work being undertaken here at a track that is nestled beautifully in the heart of the Ardennes forest. You can see the trees were very much in forestation here around this track, and you can also take a drive around and take in the views and the sights of what would have been the old circuit as well in many ways. But such history at this circuit, that's for sure, as we now watch as the crane now starts to push the tyres towards the steel barrier as it stands. But really do applaud the keen eye work that the marshals put in, obviously just ensuring our drivers' safety as best they can. But coming into the weekend, who is going to certainly make their mark here ahead of what's to come this weekend? Of course, a little reminder, we do, of course, have 2 races to bring you on top of the 4 qualifying sessions that we will, of course, be bringing you. Should I say the 2, well, technically 4 qualifying sessions if you include the 2 groups, but of course 2 qualifying sessions in totality. But of course we will be going racing later on this afternoon at 2 local time. We do still have Group B to head out just yet. See Group A still waiting to conclude their first session of qualifying, but great opportunity here as well for many spectators to enjoy the views around. Obviously, this is at the top of the grandstand where you can take in a wide majority of this circuit. You can get the view not only of the long home straight from the bus stop chicane all the way down towards La Source, but you have on the other side of the track then the exit out of La Source leading through towards Eau Rouge and Raidillon. And I mean, we talk about that portion of track and, you know, how it's very much besotted into the hearts of any motorsport fan, but especially the drivers as well, who love racing around here, that's for sure. But plenty of conversations ongoing now with those in the pit lane. As it stands, it's still Jin Nakamura, though, if you're just joining us here on this Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine broadcaster. 2:11.097 at the moment is the fastest time, and that is just over 0.2 of a second faster than Rashid Al-Dahiri in second place. With Nandavud Biren Bakhti representing the Trident team that have come in off the back of taking their first win in their history in the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine with Matteo Topalo. Nandavud Biren Bakhti, who's back again for his second season in succession in this championship. Of course, comes from a racing family in his own right, PT Biren Bakhti being a sports car enthusiast himself, but the 18-year-old Nandavud from Bangkok, Thailand, began karting in Europe and made a single-seater debut in 2022, taking part in all the realms of F4. But last year in the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine, debuted with Kick Motorsport and now moving, of course, across to Trident this season. And definitely better off for his experience last year, and now fighting up at the top end, especially in this session here at Spa. Kanato Lay just behind him in fourth place. And the top three are the only three that have registered 2:11s thus far. Of course, 2:11s more in keeping with the collective test times that we have already seen through the course of the weekend, with Jin Nakamura's 2:11.097 going faster than Nikita Bedrin's Santaloc 2:11.125 in collective test 2. And collective test 1, Freddie Slater's time of a 2:11.031 still yet to be surpassed. Just over 0.06 of a difference between Slater and Nakamura's time at the moment. But I have no doubt that they'll be looking to dig a little deeper in terms of the deltas. Now the question is, will they be able to get those tyres up to yet grander temperature when the timer does get going again? That is the biggest mystery. But the one thing about Spa is that nothing's for certain. A pocket climate in his own right, and whilst of course we've had great weather right through the course of the weekend, I can of course tell you that temperatures have since stabilised here ahead of qualifying. Obviously 19.6 degrees on the track at the moment, but in terms of the air temperature it stands at 11.2. It was a lot colder first thing this morning, certainly below 10 degrees, and some waves being sent around from the Prema garage as well on the right hand side, just getting ready with their drivers, I'm sure, eagerly awaiting to get straight back out. But we do, of course, have to give the marshals their due and ensure that they are 100% happy before we get back underway. But as I cast my eye out and onto the pit wall, I can already see a few drivers outside of their cars at the moment. Some activity down at Prema right now as they continue to look over the data and over the times that they have seen on the board as well. We've got some very learned drivers out there that are looking to extrapolate the maximum, which is exactly everything you need to do with regards to qualifying. And many of the drivers have said that whilst obviously it doesn't necessarily matter as much as it did at Misano in terms of qualifying, because it's very difficult to overtake around that track. Obviously qualifying is always essential. But here at Spa, you do have those extra avenues for overtaking. I can tell you that Freddie Slater at the moment just surveying over at the pit wall and just having a few words with his team. Obviously, he's got to jump into the car for Group B that will be coming up later on. the moment, Jack Beaton and, of course, Rashid Al-Dahiri and Dorian Pin as a 3 Prema car representation in this first group here in qualifying 1. Freddie Slater will be all on his own ahead of Group B heading out later on. Important to note as well over the last lap, Evan Giltaire, despite not being the fastest driver in the first runs, currently 7th fastest, registering the purple first sector time. The fastest first sector that we have seen as a whole with 37.894 at the moment. So definitely more in it for Evan Giltaire, who wasn't able to necessarily capture the same in the subsequent sectors in Sector 2 and Sector 3, which is essentially what let him down at that point. But again, not really at optimal conditions just yet. There's definitely more to come, that's for sure, from every driver across the grid, and I have no doubt in my mind that they will look to jump straight out, and they'll only perhaps have 1 lap to get those tyres up to the necessary temperature that they need them to be. Of course, the only benefit being that they are essentially scrub tyres at this point. They have, of course, indeed picked up a little bit of wear, which will allow them to just heat them up a little bit quicker when they head out later on. A little bit of chatter outside the Van Amersfoort crew as well. Daniel Gilles walking across towards the pit wall as well. Team boss, of course, of the Van Amersfoort racing team. And has a grand roster in front of her. We mentioned Pedro Clero, Dion Gouda and Hayu Yamakoshi. They do a great job with young drivers, do Van Amersfoort. We look back at the likes of Kaz Havercourt, who has done exceptionally well for them in the past. Very much a leader of the team when he was racing for them, was the Dutchman, has now since jumped across into the realms of Porsche Cup machinery. He's been racing in Porsche Super Cup, and we have, of course, seen as of late as well Brando Bador, who was fighting with the likes of Rafael Camara in the past and looking to push his career onwards, that's for sure. And I'm sure there's going to be definitely a grand level of support from Van Amersfoort in how their careers go onwards from the realms of Formula Regional into FIA F3 and FIA F2, with hopes and dreams of settling into life in Formula 1 one day. Santalok Racing, also another team looking for grand improvement. We mentioned Nikita Bedrin being one of their hallmark drivers, but they are supported by Tim Gerhards as well from the Netherlands, who represents in rookie class. Did not have the ideal start to his season, unfortunately, the Tim Gerhards. Obviously, Misano did not quite go to plan, had an issue on the start, a bit of a clutch failure in the first race, and then, of course, an incident in race 2 that essentially sent him plummeting. It was a baptism of fire indeed for Gerhards, who came off the back of it with double DNFs, but we'll look ahead to this round in hopes of picking up some better results. Yaroslav Vasalaho, of course, back as well, the young Ukrainian, who did not start at all through the Misano weekend. But I'm sure they'll be hoping that Vasalaho can use some of the experience he has already garnered in this series after taking part in French F4 last year and scoring points at Pau for the very first time. But prior to life in French F4 was the youngest Ukrainian drift champion in 2020. Went on to also win the Drift Masters Europe. Well, took on the Drift Masters European Championship in 2022 as well. Later rejoining the Winfield Racing School. So has quite a colourful history, does Yaroslav Vasalaho. And we'll look forward to seeing him in action as well when he gets his chances behind the wheel of the Santalok car as well. But still very much red flag conditions as it stands. As we now await news as to whether we will be, or when we will be, jumping out back again for qualifying. The team's waiting pensively at the moment for what's being decided. Obviously a lot of work still being undertaken at the barrier at the moment. A bit of jogging on the spot there. I think that is Pedro Clero, who is leaping up and down there at the moment, just looking to stay warm and ready for yet another stint. There might be Hayu Yamakoshi who might be down there just leaping up and down looking to stay warm, but it has been a cold start to the day. Plenty of discussions going on though inside the pit lane. At 11:03 local time here at the moment. Plenty of discussion certainly being had. I'm sure there's plenty of communication, many questions being asked as well. But we will be straight back out. Like I said, we will keep you informed as time draws on. But of course, we got many champions in the hallmark of Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine that have nestled in some pretty chunky statistics as well. Now, we mentioned, of course, the likes of Gregoire Saucy earlier on with his own exploits as a race winner around this circuit in the past, and also Dino Boganovic. We romanticise, of course, about his performances with Prema. Of course, since 2021, where the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine, as we know it, first came to life. Gregoire Saucy being its first champion, was from Switzerland with ART Grand Prix. Of course, since then, it's been a Prema story since 2022. With Dino Boganovic taking 4 poles and 4 wins, and then the following year, Andrea Kimi Antonelli becoming champion as well. Now, I do have some news here, folks, from Race Control. Qualifying session 1 has been cancelled and deemed null at the moment. So we will, of course, keep you up to date and informed as time goes on throughout the day. So stay tuned, of course, to the website and social media as well. But reports coming from Race Control, I can confirm that after the red flag, qualifying session 1 has been cancelled and deemed null. So we will not be rejoining the session. That is a clear message that has been sent to me at Race Control, from Race Control. And I can communicate that to you now. Qualifying session 1 cancelled and deemed null here at Spa-Francorchamps. So they will not be heading back out onto the track in bid of setting lap times ahead of race 1 coming up later on this afternoon. As to what that will mean, of course, we will keep you updated ahead of what will happen through the course of racing today. Be sure to stay up to date and stay tuned in as well to the socials and also to the news that is going to be featured onto the website as well. But the lap times that have already been put in by the likes of Jin Nakamura, they will not be counted towards the race later on. They will be scrapped. They will be nullified. So qualifying session 1 is indeed cancelled, as you can see from the message below. So essentially, the time that they have spent out on track, basically useful for free practice here at this stage, just getting a little bit of additional track delta. But here at Spa, as they begin to settle down, here right now, plenty of cars out on track. Unfortunate for the drivers, I'm sure, that were looking to get out there and register their first laps. I can confirm, of course, Dian Gauda, who, of course, was the highest-placed rookie. Of course, that time will obviously not count towards the race later on. But I'm sure you'll take solace in that nonetheless. Jin Nakamura, also, despite not achieving necessarily the pole time or achieving the fastest group time ahead of the race coming up later on this afternoon, I'm sure will still take solace from the fact that he is still up there and fighting with the likes of Rashid Al-Dahiri as well. Can put a lot of the demons to bed after what happened at Misano, obviously after the collision with Freddie Slater that led to Slater losing it and both cars barreling out of the race. As you can see, all of a sudden, the team springing into action. And no doubt looking to get the cars moved from out of the pit lane. But a little reminder as to what we've got coming up later on this afternoon. A reminder, of course, we do have a 30-minute plus 1 lap race to bring you at 2:20 later on this afternoon. So be sure to stay up to date with how that grid is going to be decided. As the cars now make their way out onto the track, they will then, I'm sure, be looking to enter into Parc Fermé. In fact, they will be hustled into their own garages right now as the marshals on hand look to direct the cars where they are needed to be. But from all of us here at Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine, we will, of course, catch up with you later on at 2:20 local time. But until then, from me, George Morgan, it's goodbye.
Très peu d'informations pour notre part ici actuellement en cabine speaker.